Hello, I'm Africa 54 Managing Editor Vincent Makori in for hashtag the U-Word. It's Monday, August the 16th. This is Africa 54.
Zambian President Edgar Lungu loses in a landslide. We'll have details. A South African tea is awarded a special honor. And according to a new World Bank survey, half of all Nigerians want to emigrate. We'll explain why.
We begin in Southern Africa, where supporters of Zambia's opposition leader celebrated his election victory in the early hours of Monday. But with an economy in dire straits, the party may be short-lived. David Doyle of Reuters has more.
Zambians woke to a new president on Monday. That is, those who'd gone to sleep. Many supporters of Hakainde Hichilema partied in the early hours of the morning after the opposition leader won Zambia's presidential election with a landslide, according to Electoral Commission results.
We, the children of Zambia, will now have freedom.
The Electoral Commission said Hichilema had secured over 2.8 million votes, compared to incumbent Edgar Lungu's 1.8 million. That's with all but one of the country's 156 constituencies counted. Lungu complained on Saturday that the election was not free and fair. But he'd been facing growing public discontent over the state of the economy, including significant levels of youth unemployment.
Disgruntled youth, that's what they called us, and now we show them that we're not disgruntled, we're actually the youth that make the change.
However, celebrations in the capital Lusaka may be short-lived. Zambia is in dire financial straits. In November, it became the continent's first sovereign default due to the global health crisis, after failing to keep up with international debt payments. IMF support and a debt restructuring plan have been on hold until after the vote. The economy has been only slightly buoyed by more favourable prices for copper, Zambia's main export. They're hovering around decade highs, driven partly by the boom in electric cars. But households continue to feel the impact as Zambia services debt that ballooned from 36% to 110% of GDP under Lungu. Zambians and investors will now be watching to see if Hichilema, once CEO of an accounting firm before entering politics, will have more success in balancing the books.
Well, David Doyle of Reuters filed that report. Now, Zambian President Edgar Lungu conceded defeat on Monday after a landslide election win by opposition leader Hakainde Hichilema, marking the Southern African country's third peaceful handover of power to an opposition party. Lungu had cried foul on Saturday, calling the election not free and fair after violence against ruling Patriotic Front Party agents in 3 provinces. But the size of the margin would have made it near impossible to challenge the result in court. The election is the culmination of an acrimonious rivalry between the two that in 2017 led Lungu to arrest and imprison Hichilema for refusing to make way for his motorcade. This is Hichilema's 6th attempt at the presidency since 2006. Now, viewers, Peter Clote has been covering the Zambian election and now joins me by phone from Lusaka. Peter, the contest was thought to be too close to call, but Hichilema's victory has turned out to be overwhelming. What was it that was missed by pollsters and pundits?
Thank you very much, Vincent. Most pollsters thought that with the level of campaign and the state resources available to incumbent President Edgar Lungu and his Patriotic Front Party, they would pose a big challenge to the main opposition leader and his alliance, United Party for National Development. However, the turnout, which was over 70%, analysts tell me, was a strong signal that something was about to happen. And they went 10 and 20 years to cite examples in 2011, 2001, and now 2021. So they are of the view that every 10 years, Zambians want to change their leaders if they see that their leaders are not performing. So perhaps that might have contributed to why predictions of a tight contest between incumbent President Hakainde Hichilema and main opposition leader and outgoing President Edgar Lungu did not pan out as they anticipated.
Now, we've seen that all night the supporters of Hichilema were celebrating. What is the other side saying? What are people saying on the streets regarding this very upsetting loss by the incumbent president?
The representatives of the outgoing ruling party have been really quiet. I have spoken with some of them. They don't want to go on record. They said they have to need to look at the fallout as a result of their stunning defeat and the landslide victory of the opposition leader. And they said they would want to go to the drawing board to figure out their next steps forward. So until they do that, they have been quiet. However, supporters of the UPND alliance have been jubilating from 2:30 a.m. this morning when the chairman of the Electoral Commission, in this case, Justice Esau, declared Hakainde Hichilema president-elect. And today, at the house or the residence of former President Rupia Banda, outgoing President Edgar Lungu met with President-elect Hakainde Hichilema, and they shared a light-hearted moment. And this is the situation on the ground, and tension has significantly reduced.
Which is really nice, because initially those concerns that he might refuse to concede. Now, in very few words, some have said this was all about the youth. What can you say to that?
Well, when outgoing President Edgar Lungu conceded defeat, he mentioned the youth. He greeted the youth. And people around me, the young people around me, said for the first time he appeared to have remembered that there are a group of young people in this country. And they said that this should be a lesson to President-elect Hakainde Hichilema, that he should not forget the youth. Otherwise, he could be in the same position as outgoing President Edgar Lungu is in at the moment. Indeed.
The youth are constant and they're powerful. Thank you very much. That is VOA's Peter Closey reporting from Lusaka, Zambia. Well, jailed former South African President Jacob Zuma has undergone unspecified surgery and remains in hospital with more operations planned. That's according to prison authorities. Zuma, serving a 15-month sentence in Escort prison for contempt of court, was sent to a hospital outside for observation on August the 6th, days before the start of a corruption trial he has thus far avoided. There was no word on a potential discharge date for Zuma. Last week, a high court postponed his corruption trial to September the 9th after his hospitalization. It is unclear what medical condition ails Zuma, and his legal team was ordered by the judge to produce a medical report by August the 20th. How about a cup of tea? Now, South Africa's Rooibos tea is getting a unique regional status. When farmers near Cape Town harvest Rooibos leaves in December, they will become the first generation to grow and sell a tea with a designation awarded to other such products as French champagne or Irish whiskey. Soraya Ali reports.
As champagne is to France and whiskey is to Ireland, now Rooibos tea is to South Africa. Come December, the tea will have what's called unique regional status awarded by the European Union. It was the first African product to get the title in June. Now farmers and agricultural experts hope that could boost demand and improve the crop's profitability. Rooibos tea means red bush in Afrikaans. The rosemary-type shrubs are indigenous to a small area of the drought-prone Western Cape and Northern Cape provinces. Rooibos farmer Dion Zandberg explains.
What makes Rooibos unique is that it is present in an area that is very small and remote. The fact that it grows here naturally makes it unique. The other thing is that it is a very healthy product. It is caffeine-free and has many health benefits.
Rooibos is commonly drunk as a tea, infused in drinks and used in beauty products. It dates back hundreds of years to South Africa's Cederberg region. It's grown over 70,000 hectares of land, and the industry produces 15,000 tons of Rooibos annually, with half of that exported to countries like Japan, Germany and the Netherlands. In London, Fortnum & Mason is a household name for luxury shopping. Ottilie Cunningham is the retailer's expert on tea and coffee.
For us, it's all about the provenance, and Rooibos has a fantastic story. Who's growing it, where it's grown, the stories around that, the environment and the community where it's grown. That's one of the things we look for.
The sector is made up of around 350 commercial and 100 emerging farmers who have battled dry conditions for years that have dented yields and drove prices higher. Now, many hope the EU nod will eventually mean Rooibos can be sold at a premium, much like champagne when compared with other sparkling wines.
Well, that was Soraya Ali, Reuters reporting. About half of Nigerians, especially youth, are willing to leave the country for a better life, according to a July World Bank survey. The report blames poor job opportunities and economic hardships made worse by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, some Nigerians who have tried migrating to Europe illegally say the risks are enormous. Timothy Obizu reports from Abuja.
In June 2016, Felix Tshisekedi wanted to start over after separating from his wife. He was told that he could make it to Europe illegally within 2 weeks. He took the offer and paid about $1,000 to local smugglers who took him from northern Nigeria to Niger and then Libya.
It is a suicide journey. It is a one-way journey that you cannot return. The funny thing is that if they leave you in the desert, you will die. Anyway they leave you, because there is no way you can help yourself. You don't know anything about the journey.
Ebinum endured hunger and extreme dehydration for many days in the Sahara Desert. He finally arrived in Libya, where he stayed for 2 years, working as a slave with little or no pay.
I was sold almost 3 times in Libya. Then when they say they want to push us, they call it pushing, transport you from the Libyan coast to Europe. I was praying God.
That was March 2018, but luckily an international organization for migration search team rescued him and others in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea en route to Europe. Last month, the World Bank said about 50% of Nigerians surveyed said they are willing to migrate for better economic opportunities abroad, an increase of 20% from a tally 7 years ago. The report also says many of the Nigerian migrants were opting for irregular migration routes. But Emmanuel Gabriel, the founder of Symbols of Hope, a non-profit helping return migrants rebuild their lives, says the situation is worse than what is pictured in the World Bank report.
You should be talking about 90%, particularly when you're talking about young people, because of the push factor. The push factors include insecurity, injustices, poverty rate, which is on the increase on a daily basis.
Nigerian economist Emeka Okengu says living standards must be improved for illegal migration to be addressed.
So I don't think Nigeria is one of the worst places to live, okay? But I think that the living standards of Nigeria could do much, much better against its resources. Okay, that agreement will stand.
Last year, the coronavirus pandemic triggered massive job losses and harmed Nigeria's economy, though it's slowly recovering. But officials say unless the poverty rate is improved, many Nigerians may be willing to pursue their dreams abroad at any cost. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Abuja, Nigeria.
We'll be right back after the break.
Join me on the next Straight Talk Africa as we celebrate the records, the medals and the victories of Africa's greatest athletes at the Tokyo Olympics. We'll look at what it would take to bring the Olympics to Africa. The continent has hosted big sporting events before, but it has yet to land the world's greatest athletic competition. We'll look at what kind of investment would be needed and whether Africans really want to host the Games. Join me, Heidi Adams, on the next Straight Talk Africa.
A 7.2 magnitude earthquake shook southwestern Haiti Saturday morning, leaving hundreds dead, injured or missing, taking down buildings and cutting off communication to at least 2 cities. VOA's Caroline Presutti tells us more.
Jean Vernier Gilbert was walking in his yard when the 7.2 magnitude earthquake struck Haiti.
Actually, I was by here and I held onto the street. I held onto the street like this, and this car here came out.
He jumped on his motorcycle to get into town and took these videos immediately after the tremor. The town of Jérémie is 2 hours from the epicenter in southern Haiti.
The houses there, say like old colonial houses, and so most of them fell down.
U.S. President Joe Biden was briefed Saturday at Camp David. He authorized an immediate response, saying in a statement it is already a challenging time for the people of Haiti. USAID Administrator Samantha Power will organize the U.S. effort. The earthquake was about 12 kilometers from Saint Louis du Sud, along the same fault line as a magnitude 7 earthquake 11 years ago. That less powerful earthquake devastated Haiti, killing about 220,000 people and leaving tens of thousands living in tent cities for more than a year. At that time, Gilbert lived in Port-au-Prince, which took the brunt of the quake.
That was something that I never thought that I didn't think that we could actually live that again. But, you know, when I find out that this one is even harder than the last one.
Gilbert lost loved ones in the 2010 quake, and he worries this quake could be worse.
I lost friends, and we have family that we didn't hear from till now. So, you know, in Haiti, we don't like to say that, you know, people die. But I guess, you know, that's what it is, because, you know, when you don't hear from somebody, you don't hear from somebody, you know, what else can you say, you know?
This natural disaster comes on the heels of the assassination of Haiti's president, Jovenel Moïse. Residents were hoping for peace and political stability. Now, politics is set aside, as people are simply afraid to go back into their houses.
It's really unexpected. People are wondering, is it the end of the world? You know, and it's sad. It's crazy.
Caroline Presutti, VOA News.
As the Taliban look set to take over Afghanistan, aid workers vow continued civilian support but acknowledge the situation looks grim for the most vulnerable, including children. Women in particular fear a return to the harsh treatment that they endured the last time the Taliban controlled the country in the 1990s. VOA's Arash Arabasadi has more.
Shuttered storefronts Sunday in Kabul as the Taliban's campaign across Afghanistan reached the capital. Violence pushed civilians from their homes. Most of them are women and children. 5 fleeing families found refuge in this small house. Among them are 3 widows and many orphans with nowhere else to go and for whom school is no longer an option. Displaced widow Guldasta says she lost her husband and 3 sons to the fighting. She tells VOA her grandchildren now provide for the family as trash collectors in Kabul.
Look at these little kids. They're collecting paper and plastic from garbage. Is this work for little kids? What did Ashraf Ghani do for us? What did Karzai do? What did Taliban do for us? They widowed our girls. We've been here for months. No cooking, no meat, no good clothes or shoes. They're still trying to get medicine.
With the Taliban bulldozing through Afghan security forces, those bringing humanitarian aid face tough choices.
We are aiming to be able to stay and deliver the assistance that is really critical right now, but also have contingency plans for if the situation continues to deteriorate, how we keep our staff, both national and internationals like myself, safe.
As Taliban fighters are set to take control of Afghanistan, human rights workers worry most about Afghan girls who, under Taliban rule, were not allowed to go to school, and women who could not go out in public without a full-body covering and male escort.
Taliban still have same attitude, same behavior, same philosophy for their own self, like that they have their own war. And it's really not possible, it is difficult for all people of Afghanistan, I'm sure, and particularly for women and the youth.
A displaced man identifying himself as M. Omar tells VOA his family just wants a normal life.
Taliban, you have mothers and sisters like us. The government too. You have families and mothers and sisters. For God's sake, stop the fighting. For the sake of the holy book, stop the fighting. If there is no war, we can go home and work to provide for our families. We left everything behind.
These displaced Afghans say the Taliban set landmines around the homes they fled. They say their children lost limbs. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News.
Now, as the United States continues to pull its embassy staff from Kabul, Afghanistan, the Biden administration is defending its withdrawal from the war-torn nation, while critics say the U.S. departure may create a humanitarian crisis and a haven for extremists. Michelle Quinn reports.
Scenes from Kabul ricochet around the world as the U.S. continues to remove its personnel and as the Taliban insurgents are poised to take control of Afghanistan. The Biden administration defended its decision to leave the country after 20 years, even if it didn't expect the Taliban to advance as quickly as they have done.
The president made the determination that it was time to end this war for the United States, to get out of the middle of a civil war in Afghanistan, and to make sure that we were looking at our interests across the world, around the world, and that we were set up to advance those interests. That's what we're doing.
Some Republican lawmakers are not only criticizing the Biden administration, they also blame the administration of former President Donald Trump for its decision to fully withdraw from Afghanistan by May of 2021, a deadline that President Joe Biden pushed back to August. Critics have also said that the current administration's handling of the withdrawal is a black eye for the U.S. on the international stage. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell released a statement Sunday saying terrorists and adversaries are watching the embarrassment of a superpower lay low.
It is going to have ramifications not just for Afghanistan, not just for us in Afghanistan, not just for the war on terror, but globally for America's role in the world, the extent to which America's adversaries know they can threaten us, and our allies are questioning this morning whether they can count on us for anything.
Secretary Blinken says the fear is searing that the Taliban, which ruled the country starting in 1996 with an Islamist fundamentalist government until its ouster in 2001, will again impose strict rules for women and others. But it's up to the international community to help the people of Afghanistan, he says, and ultimately in the Taliban's self-interest to pursue a government that upholds basic rights.
If they don't, and if they're in a position of power, and they don't do that, then I think Afghanistan will become a pariah state.
7 out of 10 Americans backed Biden's withdrawal decision, according to a poll by the Chicago Council on Global Affairs in July. Whether scenes of a rapid Taliban takeover of the capital will change Americans' support for the president's plan remains to be seen. Michelle Quinn, VOA News.
Well, our experts say the U.S. Washington's retreat from Afghanistan after 20 years could have a lasting impact on America's standing abroad. VOA senior diplomatic correspondent Cindy Sain reports.
With the Taliban taking over the vital Afghan cities of Herat, pictured here, and Kandahar, and more provincial capitals and other areas each day, U.S. officials are admitting they do not know how the situation is going to unfold. One expert told VOA that the United States sending in troops to evacuate the embassy is not the outcome anyone would have wanted.
The optics of it really, to my mind, speak to the intelligence failure of anticipating how quickly the Taliban would be able to stage their advance across the country. I don't think had the U.S. known how the past week has unfolded, we would still have 1,400 Americans reported to be at the embassy and needing an evacuation.
As the Taliban advance, the sudden U.S. diplomatic drawdown from Kabul sends an unmistakable signal. Some experts tell VOA, and not the one the U.S. would like to send.
But the fact that the U.S. is now evacuating so many of its diplomatic personnel, I think that'll send a very powerful message, not just within Afghanistan and to the world, that the U.S. is on its way out, that it's essentially giving up. Certainly, U.S. rivals will take this as a sign of weakness.
Other experts say the U.S. has always been cautious about protecting its diplomats in harm's way.
I think the main message it sends is that the United States is going to take care of its own. It's going to take care of its own diplomats. It's going to try and do what it can to those who served as interpreters or translators. But that, in essence, the U.S. is pulling up stakes. And President Biden was pretty clear about that when pressed on this earlier this week as well, that it seems rather unlikely that he'll revisit his decision on the troop withdrawal.
President Joe Biden has repeatedly said there is no military solution to the decades-old war in Afghanistan, and has pointed out that in addition to the thousands of American lives lost, the U.S. spent more than $1 trillion equipping and training Afghanistan's military. As displaced Afghan women and children sought shelter at a camp in Kandahar before the city fell to the Taliban, another expert told VOA that in the short term, a Taliban takeover of Afghanistan would deal a blow to the U.S. image as a champion of human rights abroad.
Certainly if the Taliban are successful in capturing the country and imposing the style of regime that we're used to seeing from them, that will, I think, damage the U.S.'s standing as a global protector and advancer of human rights and women's rights.
Some experts fear that the Taliban now have their sights on Kabul, and that the Afghan capital could fall more quickly than in the 30 to 60-day time frame originally feared. Cindy Sain, VOA News.
And that's it. Thank you very much for watching.